smallest one do you think, Justin?
7/4, -7/4.
This is what Justin thinks, and that's fine, okay? What do you think comes next? What do you think comes next, Chloe? What do you think is going to come next? What do you think?
-0.3.
And we don't read it that way. How do we really read a decimal? -3/10. I want you to read it. It'd be like me reading your name or calling you out by name, going Justin. Okay? So I want you to say the number that's there, okay, bud? All right, what comes next? What do we want to go next? Talon?
-2/3.
I already got -2/3. I can't move it. I got to leave it there. So what's going to come next, Ben?
6/10. No, 6/10. Not negative.
Ben says I want 6/10 next, okay? And then what's that leave me with last? What's it going to leave me with?
3/4.
3/4. Now, how many of you think, hey, we're really good and we guessed it all right? We might be. Let's find out. Can we check it? Now, a while ago, we were talking about the whole purpose of what we're doing is to be able to convert decimals to fractions, fractions to decimals. And one of the reasons Justin said we need to be able to do that is so that we can compare things. Okay. Comparison-wise, we have equivalence, so we should know what the decimal representation for 2/3 is, or -2/3. What decimal is that? Negative 66 hundredths. What's it do though? Repeating, okay. So I'm going to say this is -0.6 repeating. And I could say 66, but either way is fine, right? That's 2/3. What's 3/4 as a decimal? That again is part of our equivalence, isn't it? What is it? 75 hundredths. 3/4 of a dollar is 75 cents. Okay. What is -7 1/4? Or -7/4? -7/4. If I wanted to write it as a decimal, how would I write it, Ben?
It would be -1 and 75 hundredths.
Good job. -1 and 75 hundredths. He's absolutely correct. Okay. Now, looking at that, how'd we do? We did really well, didn't we? How many of you, though, you didn't really go through the process of converting it, but in your mind you kind of did? Okay? If you didn't, chances are you wouldn't have been able to put these in order. But we've done it enough that we kind of know some of these, so we were able to reason it out. Yes, ma'am?
Couldn't you just convert the decimals into fractions because there's only 2 of them?
Ooh. She says, well, why don't we just convert the decimals into fractions? Because there's only 2 of them. And 6/10, right? There we go. That could have been a lot easier. I'm good with that. But again, you're still converting things, aren't you?
Yeah, but then you have to do the
Other fractions to make
you
it
have to do the common denominator.
Oh, you'd have to do common denominators to really do it well? Possibly. How many of you saw -7/4 and knew that it had to be smaller than anything else because you knew -7/4 was at least -1 plus something more? So you knew that was farther from 0, didn't you? So you already knew that one was the smallest. Okay? What about number 2? Could you do it? Can you do it? Are you gonna convert everything into fractions, or are you gonna convert the 7/5 and the -6/5 into decimals? Which way do you want to do it? Callan, what are you gonna do?
Convert it into decimals.
Convert it into decimals. Okay. So is it fair to say this one, 5 goes into 7 one time, so I've got a whole. And I have how many more? 1 and what? 1 and 2/5, right? Okay. What is the decimal representation of 2/5? You've been doing it for a year and a half or a year and a fourth on equivalence. What is 2/5 as a decimal? What's it going to be, Talon?
4/10.
4/10. Good. See where equivalence can kind of come in handy? What about -6/5? And you should be writing this on your paper, even if you're not doing it yourself, but you're taking the notes. Okay? Well, if I have -6/5, do I have a whole?
Yeah.
So I know I have -1. And how much more? 6/5 is -1, and how many more fifths? Okay. Cole, 6/5 is -1, and how many more fifths? I'm turning it into a mixed number. -1 and what fifths? What's 6 minus 5?
6 minus 5 is 1.
Okay, so isn't that -1 and 1/5 then, technically? So what is -1 and 1/5 as a decimal? What's the decimal representation for 1/5, Ben?
-1 and 2/10.
-1 and 2/10. Very good. Now I've got all decimals. Can I put them in order?
Yes.
I lost you, Chance. Did I lose you, bud?
This is confusing.
Okay. All I'm doing is looking at these and converting them into a decimal. And I'm using a lot of what I know because of equivalence. Because these are equivalents that we do all the time. Do you see where -6/5 becomes -1 and 1/5?
Oh yeah.
Okay. And so then all I needed to do was turn that 1/5 of a fraction into a decimal.
Yeah, I had a -1 and
2/10. Good. Okay, so that's what we're doing. So now, let's put them in order. What's the smallest one up there? What's the smallest one up there, Jaslyn?
-6/5.
Good job. I took it back to what the numbers are that they gave us. So this one's been done. What else? What comes next? What comes next? Josie, look at it. I'm going to continue looking at my negatives. Do you agree? Well, what's the next negative I have?
-1 and 3/10.
That's got to be the one that comes next, doesn't it?
But isn't that in front of it?
Mm.
Because it's smaller than -2.
Good. So is -6/5 not my smallest then?
Yeah.
Because that's -1 and 2/10 or -1 and 3/10. Which one is farther away from 0?
-1.
So I better have my -1.3, then my -6/5. So that gets both of those. Okay? Where do I go from there? Which one is smaller now? 1 and 5/10, 1 and 4/10, or 1 and 65/100. Which one is smaller? Chance? Good try, but nope. And how do I know on decimals? Is there a way that I can see it? If I don't just automatically know it, how would I know? How do I figure it out? Jaslyn, do you know?
You know, I was going to tell you which one is smaller.
How do I know, Roper? Nope. Here's what I'm going to do. I've got 1 and 5/10. I've got 1 and 4/10. And I have 1 and 65/100. I got something on my screen I got to wipe off. Okay? Now then, I'm going to make them have the same number. This one's goes to the 100th. Do you agree? 1 and 65/100. So if I go to 1 and 50/100, 1 and 40/100, 1 and 65/100, which one is smaller? 1 and 40/100 or 1 and 4/10. Do you see why it's smaller? 140 is smaller than 165, isn't it? Okay, so 1 and 4/10 comes next. Okay, what's going to come after that?
But wouldn't you have to change it back to the 7 bits?
Yes, I would, because that's what I was given, right? Going back to what we were given. Okay, what's gonna come next? 1 5/10 or 1 65/100? Jaden, which one?
1 and 5 tenths.
Good job, 1 5/10. Followed by which number, Monique? What's my last one? Good. 1 65/100. Okay? If asked to put in order, could you do it now? How do you feel about it? Fist to 5. Okay. What do I have to do before I start moving them around? Convert. I have to convert. Either all to fractions or all to decimals. I've got to convert one way or the other. Okay? And that's what we're going to be doing. Now, we're talking about rational numbers. Rational numbers. A rational number is a number that can be written as A over B or as a ratio. Okay, that's what a rational number is. There's only one thing about that rational number, though. That denominator can't be 0. Why not? If I wrote, why can I not write that? Why not, Jordan?
Because it's just 3 number.
Nope, it's not a whole number 3. Why is this not something I can do? Emily?
Because that says 3 divided by 0.
3 divided by 0, which is not something we can do. Do you agree?
Mhm.
What else do you know about it? Do you know anything else?
You can't, well, 0 as 0, there can't be no numbers in between it. Because it's just 0.
I'm comparing two things. I can't compare 3 to not out of nothing. Because a ratio is 3 to 0. There's nothing there. There's no comparison. It doesn't work. This will not work. Okay? Now, I can have 0 out of 3. There could be, right now, I've got 2 out of 3 desks filled. Do you agree? Everybody agree with that?
Yeah.
I have 0 out of 2 seats. Do you agree? There's no student here. That's what that tells me. 0 out of 2 means 0, right? But what if I say right here in the front I have 3 out of 0? There's 3 out of 0 places right there. Do you see them?
No.
They don't exist. It's not real. I can't have 3 out of nothing. I can have 2 seats that's available here, and I don't have anybody sitting in them, but the 2 seats are still there, aren't they? I got nothing here. Nothing. So it doesn't work. Does that make sense to you, Chloe? Yes.
So you could put 0 over 3, but you can't put 3 over 0.
Exactly. Because 0 over 3 means 0. What is 0 divided by 3? 0. Right? Okay. Now, somebody said something about it being a whole number. What's a whole number? Isn't
3 over
2 over 1, 3 over 1. These, a whole number can be written out as a ratio. Okay? That's why it's a rational number. -2 is a rational number because you can write it as -2 over 1. Do you agree? Okay? Let's write -2 1/4 as a decimal. Okay, what if I don't know an equivalent of 1/4? How do I write 1/4 of as a decimal if I don't know it? How do I find it? How do I find it, Jaslyn?
1 divided by 4.
Yeah. If I don't know, I've got to do 1 divided by 4. 1 goes in the house, it's the dividend, divided by the divisor, which is the 4, and the quotient will give us a decimal. Yes, sir?
I know the answer to that.
You know the answer to that. What is the answer to, I don't like the way I wrote that. What is the answer to this, Justin?
0.
No, ma'am. No, sir. Well, kind of, but not exactly. Will 4 go into 1? No, it does not. So I'm going to put in a 0 and a decimal. And I'm going to add a 0 right there. Now, will 4 go into 10, Chloe? How many times?
It will go twice.
Twice. I'm going to throw a 2, and 4 times 2 is 8. And 10 minus 8 equals, Cole? 2. Now, do I keep going, or do I say, oh, I got a remainder of 2 fourths? I'm going to keep going because I need a decimal. Okay? So I'm going to add a 0, and I'm going to add a 0. How many times will 4 go into 20? Zach? 5 times. And I get 20, and 20 minus 20 is 0, and I get to stop. So what is the decimal representation for a negative 2 and 1/4? What is the decimal representation, Talon?
2500ths.
For negative 2 and 1/4?
Negative 2 and 2500ths.
There we go. Negative 2, and is the decimal point, 2500ths. Okay? You can do that with any fraction. You can turn it into a decimal, yes. Okay? Because look at the next one. Do you know what the decimal of 5/11ths is? I don't know it. Cashton says he knows it. Do you know it? Off the top of your head. Keep it. Don't tell me it yet. Well, yeah. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you think.
5500.
He says he thinks it's this. What do you think, Cashton? 2200ths? Cashton says, I think it's this. Okay? Let's find out. 5 divided by 11. Will 11 go into 5? 11 times something going to give you 5? Nope. Throw a 0, a decimal. Now, how many times will 11 go into 50? Justin?
4.
4 times. And 4 times 11 is 44. And 50 minus 44 is what? Monique? What's it going to be, sweetie? 6. Monique, I would really appreciate it if you get your pencil and you would work them with us, okay? So get busy and work them with us. Okay? So I don't 0 out. I've got to add a 0 and bring it down. How many times will 11 go into 60? 11 into 60. Emmy? Or Esri? Sorry. 5 times, and 5 times 11 is 55. Do the subtraction there. 60 minus 55 gives us, Ben? 5. I still haven't zeroed out. I got to add another one. Bring it down. How many times is 11 going to go into 50? 4? What do you notice, ladies and gentlemen?
It's just repeating itself.
Right, it's going to repeat. So can I stop? And how do I show that this is a repeating decimal? How am I going to show what's going to be repeating? Jocelyn?
I think I know, but would we put the line over the 5 and the 4?
Yes, ma'am. And actually, when I see it like this, I would write it this way. Okay? Unless it told me to round to the nearest hundredth. And then it would be an approximate. Were our 55 hundredths and 22 hundredths good guesses?
Not the 22.
They didn't really work, did they? I couldn't just think about it. I couldn't just watch it. I had to do it. I had to do the math. How many of you in here, we had this discussion in 6th grade, how many of you in here love sports. You just like to go do sports. And some of you don't. Okay, now, I want you to tell me, who in here is the greatest basketball player the world has ever seen?
Jordan.
Michael
None of
Jordan.
us.
Michael
Huh.
Jordan.
None of you raised your hand. Okay. You say Michael Jordan, and he was known as the greatest basketball player. I agree. I don't know if he's still there, but you got Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Stephen Curry, Kevin Durant. You have all these good basketball players. How many of you watch basketball on TV?
No, it's boring.
Okay, you watch basketball on
I'd
TV.
rather watch
Now, did that make you the best basketball player ever?
No.
Did that improve your shot? Your shots. Okay? So, I could tell you that I'm going to go and enter the Knights of Columbus free throw competition and I'm going to win. I can tell you that all I want. But if I don't do it, if I don't practice it to get ready for it, I'm probably not going to. And I know I wouldn't. I'm just not going to win. It's not going to happen. Okay? I may know the form. I may know the process. I know I've heard coaches say you get up there and you bend your knees and you bring the ball back for that free throw and you use your legs. I've heard them, oh, that gave me a cramp. I've heard them tell me that you go use your legs, go up on your tiptoes as you lose that shot, and you flip the hand. I've seen them do this. Hold it, finish it. I've seen them do it. Just because I've seen all that doesn't mean that I can do it. Do you agree? Math's the same way. I can stand up here and do it all day long. I'm going to get better at it because I'm doing it. You're sitting there watching it. Yeah, I see it, Teach. Nice numbers. But I'm not going to be able to do it. I don't care how good you think you are. If you don't do it, and you don't write it, and you don't actually form the letters and the numbers, eventually, the math is going to get so hard that you can't do it any longer. One, you didn't ever learn how to organize it, how to put it on paper and put those thoughts from here down on paper. And if you don't, when it becomes difficult, you're not going to be successful. I'm telling you, you're not. And I'm not telling you that just because I want to tell you something, just because, I'm just going to predict the future. But I've been around math long enough to know you have to do it, okay? So do it. Don't be lazy. All right. Write the rational number as a decimal. Do number 1. 6/5, negative 6/5 as a decimal. What do you got to do?
Do it.
Mm-hmm. What? Set it up backwards, didn't you? Okay. Number 1. Oh, so, let me tell you what. Which one goes in the house? A fraction is a division statement. Numerator divided by denominator. If you don't set it up right, you won't get the right answer. Sure do. Numerator has to be in the house. Which one did you put in the house? Numerator. goes in the house. Will 5 go into 6? Yeah. How many times?
One.
I do the subtraction, I got 1 left over, and I add a 0, and I bring it down. Because I added the 0, I gotta put the decimal. Will 5 go into 10? Twice?
Yep.
Minus 10. I get 0. So, that has to be, now the question would be though, is it negative? Negative divided by, only one of them can be negative. So negative divided by positive is gonna give you a negative number, okay? Because they're different signs, okay? And how do you know which one to attach that negative sign to? Does it matter? No. But if you did negative divided by, if there was a negative sign on both of them, then it'd be a positive, so it wouldn't work, okay? Now, on number 2, do I need to put the 7 inside the house? No, because I know I have negative 7 and something else, right? So I know I have negative 7 and it's the something else I gotta figure out. Okay? It's the something else you have to figure out. Which one goes in the house on number 3, Zach? 3's gotta go in the house. I know my answer has to be negative. I'm just going to throw the negative sign up there and not worry about it anymore. Remember last chapter I said, don't forget the rules because they'll apply for the rest of the year in everything we do. Whether we're dealing with decimals or fractions or whole numbers, positive and negative rules still apply. And that's where kids forget. Okay. Can you do it? How do you feel about converting from fraction to decimal? Fist to 5. How do you feel about it? You know the process, but maybe need the practice. Okay? How many of you could say, I know the process? I get that part. Fist to 5 on just knowing the process. That's what I thought. I thought we had that. Now it's the practice. Okay? Well, how many times is 8 going to go into 3? How many times, Mr. Talon? 0. Throw in a decimal, add a 0. How many times will 8 go into 30? 8 goes into 30. How many times, Zach?
3 times.
Zach says 3 times because 8 times 3 is what, Zach?
24.
24? Thank you, sir. And 30 minus 24, what do we get? What do we get? 6? Gotta add a 0. Bring it down. How many times will 8 go into 60? Raise your hand. Zach's got his up. 8 goes into 60. How many times, Zach?
7.
7, and 8 times 7 is 54. And 60 minus 54 is 6, isn't it? And if I add a 0, is that going to change the end results ever?
No, it should be 56.
Oh, is that the problem?
Yes.
Yeah. Got to make sure you do the math right.
Oops. I
So
did
right
have that
there,
paper. And
I'm
it
going to
did-
pull that out of there.
Also, it's an equivalent.
So that's 56, 50.
6.
Did I say it a while ago and I just didn't write it right?
No,
you
you
Okay.
said 54.
So I bring the 4 and I add a 0. Is 8 going to go into 40?
Yes.
How many times?
5 times.
So what's my answer? Negative 7 and 3/8 converted is,
Negative 7 and 375,000.
good, negative 7 and 375 thousandths. Okay? Just make sure when you do the math that you do it. A lot of times when you guys tell me and I don't do it, I take you at your word. I just put it up there. I go with it. And I know better, but I just go with it. Do you guys just go with it? Sometimes, okay? That's where we gotta be careful, okay? All right, can we change the fraction into the decimal? We've done fractions to decimals. We know the procedure. We need the practice. What about decimal to fraction? Emmy, what would negative 26, what would this decimal be as a fraction starting out? Negative 26 hundredths. Read the decimal. So step one, maybe for some of you, you need to make a note. Read decimal. Step two, lowest term. Or maybe I should say simplify. Would that be better for you? Simplify. Give me that spelled right. All right. So I read the decimal, negative 26 hundredths. Is it in simplest form? Is it in lowest terms? Is that a phone going off?
No.
Okay. Okay, if it's an adult, that's fine. All right. Is that in lowest terms? No. What do I do with this? What am I going to do, Justin? Close our door. I don't want to hear.
Divide the two numbers by a number that can go into both
Yeah.
of them.
What do you know looking at them that you could pick real quickly?
2.
2. Works for me. Divide both numbers by 2. And I get 26 divided by 2. I have negative 13. And 100 or a dollar divided in half is 50. Now am I in lowest terms? Simplest form. Am I done? Yep, I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. I kept the negative sign and I just dealt with the fraction or the decimal. You do number 6. Step 1, read the decimal. Tenths, hundredths, thousandths place. Read the decimal. What? Yes, you can, but you can't, because those are both divisible by 5. Right, but they're divisible by 5. I don't know that, I'd have to play with it, because I don't know whether that would be a true statement or not. I'm not saying it's not, I'm just saying I don't know. Yes, sir? No, because that's 125,000. Not 100. Okay. How many of you, as I walk around, I'm not even sure everybody has this written down to start with. Because some of you read it as 125 hundredths. It's in the thousandths place, okay? Now, Cole, is that in simplest form? Is it simplified? No. How do you know that? You're right, it's not. What do you know about a number that ends in a 5 or a 0? It's divisible by what? By 5. Good. That's a rule of divisibility. And we did those last year, and they are something that makes life easy. So 125 divided by 5 is what? What's it gonna be? 125 divided by 5, Ben?
25, 200.
Pardon?
25, 200.
25 over 200? Is that where we're at? Can I simplify that further?
Yes.
So 5 wasn't enough, I'm gonna go farther. And when I simplify divide both of those by 5, I end up with 5 40ths? Have I simplified as far as I can go?
No.
Divide by 5 again? And what do you end up with? 1/8.
So I did exactly that, and then I remembered whenever I finished that it was an equivalence, and so I kind of got mad at myself because I did all the work and I realized that I memorized it.
Mrs. Rakestraw is teaching you equivalents because they're gonna come in handy. Right there, it would have been so much easier to go, "Oh, that's an 8. And for those of you that got it, good. Okay, but on the equivalence quiz, if you don't know it, can you convert it? Can you change it? I don't time the equivalence quizzes, do I? Do you think that could help increase your time frame on your scores? No, I don't, they're not timed anymore. I haven't timed them at all this year. I haven't set a timer and said you gotta be done by such and such, have I? No? Okay. -3 1/10, oops. -3 and 1/10. That's it. Yes, ma'am.
I thought it would be 3 and 2 100s because, wouldn't it have to have the 0 before the 1?
No, ma'am. That is -3 and 1/10. It's in the 10th place. If it was written like this, Jaslyn, that would be -3 and 100th.
Oh.
Okay?
So
It would be written like that, and I wouldn't be able to simplify. Okay? Okay, let's apply what we've been doing. The table shows the elevations of 4 sea creatures relative to sea level. Which of the sea creatures is deeper than the whale? You're gonna answer this and then, because we're out of time. Whoa, that's not the assignment. I'll fix that, because you'll be doing a math journal page. Actually, I think I did that because last year we zoomed through, but I don't know that I wanna do that this year. So, I'm gonna tell you right now, it's not this. It's gonna be 2.1 practice. Somebody look in the math journal real quick for me. MJ page. Page 28, and somebody go to page 49 in their textbook. And textbook, page 49, what numbers are we doing? The last review pages, the review numbers. The bottom, yeah, what is it?
48 through 52.
48 through 52, that's it. Okay? How many of you are hungry?